All right, so it's always exciting. Every single week, we try to find the best of the best. And if you are in the Chicagoland area and you're looking for people who are the best and on the top of their game, who do you go to when it comes to Southside real estate? It's one and only Mr. Frank Montro. So, Mr. Frank, how are you?
Awesome.
Great.
How you doing today, Andrew?
So, it's not only over the years, I had heard the name, the man, the myth, and the legend, right, of Southside.
Right.
And then we became friends, not only because from the real estate agent standpoint, but from an investing standpoint. So before we kind of get into it, for people maybe that are not familiar with what is this whole Frank Montro thing? This Frank Montro Homes all over the South, and now you're expanding kind of all over the place. But what is this formula? What do you do? Do you work with investors? What is Frank Montro Homes exactly?
Great question. So what I do is I'm primarily a real estate agent, and I primarily work with investors. So on the investor side, and I work with buyers as well too, but I have a team for that. So on the investor side, my job is to capture the highest ROI for each transaction we're in, and to do it on the fastest possible time. So I've been in the business for 34 years. I've seen all the mistakes. So when I approach, or when an investor comes to me and says, "Hey, will you take another investor?" And I'm like, absolutely. I mean, as long as an investor stays in their own lane and they let me do my thing and I'll let you do your thing so we can go fast, we can do a lot together.
So it's interesting because, I think I've always found that interesting about what you do, is because you do exactly opposite what most agents do. Most agents, they don't want to deal with investors. They run from investors, and it's like, oh, not another investor. And you have become kind of one of those guys that not only do you sell a lot of retail houses, right? But
Right,
on top of that, you specialize in working with and finding some phenomenal deals, correct?
Correct. Well, and interestingly enough, I'll throw this out there. This will blow your mind, Andrew. A third of my clients are real estate brokers.
Okay.
So
Right.
when you think about that, you got to think for a second. Why would a real estate broker give another real estate broker their listing? Because of what I bring to the table.
Correct.
There's three parts to the equation. There's buying right, rehabbing right, and reselling right. And with my 34 years of experience of being at the top of the mountain every year and continually learning, that's how I've been able to stay on top of the mountain.
Got it. So, just for people that may be new to kind of your type of volume, right? We're not talking about 50, 60, 100 deals. We're talking in the numbers of 3, 4, 500. And you're not only growing the amount of business, you're making a humongous impact in the community. I think one of the biggest things I've respected about you is that not only have you done well, but you want to pull other people along with you, because success really creates more success, not only for you, but a lot of investors. And you've been hugely involved in the community. And that's been why not just basically just do it all for yourself, rather than all this outreach you do? You come out to our shows, you come out, go help investors. Why?
Well, I think it's because of the way I was raised.
Okay.
So I get choked up when I talk about this stuff, but my dad came from nothing, and he worked his butt off, and he wasn't educated. He didn't have enough money. He was actually a great baseball player, and he got a tryout. He got a tryout for the White Sox, and he didn't have money to take the training for the. Back then it wasn't. They weren't whining and dining back in the 20s. So all I saw was I saw a level of commitment and grind and love for other people and honesty and integrity. So that's what I saw. So that's all I know. So I take that into whatever I do. If I'm playing, I'm playing after hours. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do it, wholeheartedly. If I'm working, my job is not just a job. It's my mission. It's my calling. It's my purpose. I love helping people. It's in my fiber. That's what drives me.
You know, it's interesting because I heard Les Brown once say he said, you have to be, you can't be the person who goes and picks something to do. It has to be in you. It has to be every fiber of your body.
That's
and I think
excellent, yeah.
that's what you truly, truly embody, because you love, I mean, the good days, the bad days, every single thing, you seem to really love it. And even if you don't, you've convinced yourself that you gotta love it to really perform at this level for this long. Is that correct?
Well, boy, that's, you're getting into a very tricky area. It's a great question. It's very easy to get burnt out, and it's very easy to listen to all the negativity out there. One of the most important lessons that I learned in life was to focus. I heard Gary Keller. I was at a conference with all the top producers at Keller Williams, and he walks in the room, and there's guys that are closing 1,500 deals a year, killing it. And he said, the reason why I'm more successful than anybody else in this room is because of one word: focus.
It's the one thing, right? His book probably is the one of the best. Is one of the simplest books, yet probably one of the best books ever written, right?
The level of I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with everybody. The level of distractions that are out there today. I mean, you can't even turn on the news and you see all this crazy stuff. People getting stabbed. People getting shot. I mean, there's so many things, coming at us personally on a daily basis too. It's so easy to get discouraged and to get sidetracked. And so what I've learned and what I'm constantly learning is just how to amp up focus. So that I'm focusing on focus.
Right.
That's my new line. I'm focusing on
focus. So it's 100% focus. So
it's huge.
Let's talk about this thing called competition. People are always afraid of competition. Oh my God, Andrew, you share all this information. Frank shares this great information. Aren't you afraid of competition?
No, actually, competition is great for me.
Explain that.
Okay, so what people don't understand is competition is a good thing. Here's what happens when everything comes easy to you. You don't give it your all. I've seen talented athletes, and I'm watching them out in the field playing different sports, and you can tell they're not giving 100% because they've got so much talent. And then you got the Rudy types. Who are the Who do they make movies? Are they making Rudy movies out of guys that are super talented?
No.
They're making Rudy movies out of guys that have very little talent, but they've learned how to grind at an extraordinary level. And that's what I've learned how to do. And so here's my feeling is. My feeling is if there's competition in there, it's going to force me to bring my A game every day. It's going to force me to expand my thinking, to think bigger, to act bigger. And you don't get that. If you're hanging around a bunch of average people and that's your crowd, that's your base, there's nobody there to push you. If you're hanging around with people that are way ahead of your game, they're going to be, what's wrong with you? How come you're not doing this? Why are you lazy? Why aren't you doing more deals? They will force you to expand your mind and your thinking, so you're going to get to the point where you're starting to think big and you're going to start acting bigger.
And I think what it is that anytime somebody says that, oh my God, somebody's going to take some of the information you share and going to run with it.
Good.
My response always has been is, listen, if Michael Jordan is going to teach me how to dribble, and if I think I'm going to basically beat Michael Jordan at his own game, I'm high. Right? It's like Frank Montro is going to give you lots of great information. You really think you're going to go in his territory and start beating him like a drum. I mean, you're out of your mind. And I think that's what competition, that people who are not willing to work are afraid of competition. Right?
Right. And, the other thing, too, is that competition also, in my world, if somebody wants to compete with me and they're starting to do rehabs in the South Side, they're improving, revitalizing the neighborhood. Why would I be upset about that? That's only helping me. Especially if they're doing what happened, and I'll tell you, this is a funny story. I wasn't able really to coach everybody to do what my vision was to create these beautiful rehab homes. And the reason is that back in the subprime era, anybody could buy a house. Anybody that had a pulse can buy a house. So there was, I talked to my investors, like, why should I put all this money in a house? I can sell it overnight, just, doing an average rehab. So when the market adjusted, when it corrected, and properties weren't selling, I told my clients at that time, the only way we're gonna make it happen is through excessive value. And so it took 5 meetings over a period of 5 months before investors realized, hey, our old way is not working. So we got the new way, and we got, we started creating excessive value. So now we've got this amazing product out there, right? And now if I have other people that jump on board and say, hey, the only way I can do this is to create the same model. Now I've just created more, and it's all it does. It's just creating an environment of improvement that you're bringing more disposable income in. I had this one investor call me up and just cussed me out, blankety blank upset. Who is this? He says, basically he said in so many words, after I cut out all the cuss words, I figured out what he was saying. He was mad at me because this was back right after the market crash, and I got a big wave on the south side of investors doing this, the better rehabs. He said now because of me, he's got to spend more money to rehab, and he's mad.
He's got to develop a better product. It's like one of those things. You truly. What you've done in that area, you changed the game, you changed the playing field, and you created your own market in a place where nothing existed. So let's talk a little bit about what does it take to succeed today for somebody who wants to do flips, for somebody who wants to build a huge rental portfolio. From my end, the answer is going to be is work with the best, which is Frank Montro and your team, because you have a huge team now. But what does it take truly to become successful as a real estate investor in today's business environment from your end?
Okay, so that's a great question, and in many ways it's a very dangerous question. So the first thing, and I know this is going to sound weird, but you have to have a humble mind coming in here. A lot of people, I've had a lot of successful people with a lot of money approach me, and they're very successful, and they're very self-confident. You know what? I'm not going to tell them how to run their business, because I don't know how to do that. Likewise, don't come to me and don't say, hey, you're doing this wrong and then you're doing that wrong, because I've had 34 years of experience of seeing everything done right and everything done wrong. Now, am I open to changes? Absolutely. I'll be the first one. That's the one thing that I take a lot of pride in, so to speak, is that I remain humble, because I always want to learn something every day. And so what's important is that you have the right attitude when you approach the game. And number 2 is really you need to have access to funds. So if you're open-minded and you have access to funds, and I can certainly, I know all the hard money lenders out there. I can certainly make introductions, and even first timers. There's some banks that are willing to play with first timers, especially if they know that they're paired up with me as the exit strategy. Then hard money lenders that don't typically loan to first time investors will loan to them, because they know there's a safe passage, because
right. They know they have a team, the investors bringing a team to the table. So let me ask you this, because a lot of people think people like yourself, people like me, you have this gift, right? That everything we touch just turns to gold, right? And where I'm going with this is this phenomena called, the 4-hour work week. Or I can sit on a beach, automate everything, and everything is just going to happen for me, right? We're kind of in this society that it's beyond microwave. It's that I don't even have to get out of the couch. Can I touch my iPhone so it can start the damn microwave? And it pisses me off, because let's talk about a little bit of good old-fashioned hard work.
Well, let me tell you something.
I'd love to get your comments on that.
Let me tell you something. I didn't put myself together. Obviously, a higher power, who I call Jesus Christ, put me together, and I'm here for a reason. And one of the gifts that I have is hard work. That's a gift, and so I utilize that every day. I look at it one of the first things I say to myself when I wake up, when I do my daily affirmations, I'm like, I'm alive. Yes. Now I know I get to see my family, I get to experience my family. Even if I work all day, when I come home, I want to at least see my wife and my two boys. Before, even if it's for a minute, I want it, because that's my biggest joy. That's my part of my biggest why. So yes, the hard work is actually looked upon as a negative, as something that's bad, when it's actually something that's good. If we look at the previous generation, I mean, United States was built on hard work. All these buildings, all the infrastructure. Today's mentality of entitlements and 4-hour work weeks, and I'm going to hang out at the beach and sip on margaritas. I really don't know anybody. I don't see Mark Cuban or any of those other billionaires doing that. Those guys are Branson, Richard Branson. Those guys are all working. They love what they do. They found what they're designed for. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm wired to do something. I was brought here for a reason. I took my personality test. I found out what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be helping people, and I found out my exact purpose in life, and it's not worked for me. So I guess if I was doing something that I really hated, it'd be difficult. But I'm doing something that I love, and so it's easy breezy, baby.
Right, because I mean, that's one thing is that it pisses me off whenever people say that you can sit on the beach. You can I mean, I'm like, show me one serious business person that wasn't handed something that hasn't had to work hard and doesn't have to work hard if they want to stay competitive.
Hey, I'll tell you what, that's a good point. There's been people that have inherited money, and they've taken that entitlement road, and they're broke.
Yeah.
So there's plenty. You look at all these guys that are just absolutely flat out broke because they stop working and all they do is party, or they're hanging out with an entourage, and ball players. And look at all the ball players that didn't take their life seriously, and now they're broke.
Right.
So
no, I mean, it makes perfect sense. So yeah. I want to kind of go to one more thing. Where do you think we are in the marketplace, and where do you see? I mean, nobody can predict the future, but what do you see based on your experience? We're going in the next year or two as it relates to the South Side.
Well, I think that it's going to do nothing but skyrocket, and here's why. Because of the banking industry out there, they're becoming more and more pro lending into low to moderate areas. There was a time when it was pretty brutal, where banks were actually in-house dumbing down appraisals.
And you were chastised quite badly for speaking the truth.
Yeah, I had one bank that said one major bank that said they were going to sue me, and so I told them, I said, hey, I know somebody on Fox News, this one anchor. She's African American. I said, I'm friends with her. Let's bring her in. Let's cover this story that you're gonna sue me. And so I got a letter saying they're no longer dropping the case. So all I was doing was just sharing my story.
Right.
Which was where this one particular bank, and at the time there were several. One the appraiser would come in. Appraiser was doing his job. He showed all the numbers, what the property's worth, and then they would take it and lower it anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, because their rationale is, if this house falls apart next year, I'm going to recover more money that way. I'm going to have a smaller loss. What they didn't realize is, if these bungalows are worth $200,000, and then I come in and I start appraising for $180,000, then all the other loans I've got out there for $200,000, those houses are going to be worth $180,000, and so if those go into foreclosure, then I'm in trouble.
Right.
As well, I'm going to lose money there. So it's just so narrow-minded.
According to you, in the immediate future, at least, bright future for the South Side,
yeah.
Chicago.
I think it's going to be extraordinary, and the reason why, in specifics, is that there's so many programs out there now. The banks are loosening up their programs. There's the Chicago Infrastructure Program, there's the IDA program, there's Sapphire, there's just a host of nonprofits out there as well too that have different programs in different cities like Aurora. And so there's a ton of grant money out there. The interest rates are not going to be spiking up anytime soon. So with all that in place, there's everything in place for buyers to buy, to be affordable. Now people that are that can't that haven't learned how to save, that don't have the big down payment. I mean, there's programs out there now where you can buy for $1,000 down, 1% down. It's crazy. So the market is extremely affordable. That door isn't closed. That door has been expanded. So with that being expanded, you have everything there to produce a healthy environment and to produce a growing environment.
So you see, I mean, there's a ton of opportunity, especially in Chicagoland area, and for people who are doing flips in your area. I mean, just a ton. Yet it's block by block, and that's why we always say, pick up the phone, call Frank, talk to him and his team, and also in terms of rentals. So having said that, Frank, I'd like to thank you for being on the show today. Any last message as we wrap up the show?
Yes. Believe me when I say this, there is a ton of opportunity. And so if you hook up with someone like me, I know where the opportunity is, and I know where the right opportunity is. Now, what has discouraged a lot of people is the MLS. Properties are not being sold on the MLS like they used to be. That used to be the only game in town. Now there's just a host of different ways to buy properties, including a lot of off-market venues. And of course, I make it my business to know all of those. So yes, but if you're just a standard cookie cutter MLS guy, then you're going to be thinking, hey, there's really nothing out there. But there, in all actuality, there's still a vibrant market of wholesale properties out there.
So
you
a lot of great deals. We'll make your number available to everybody.
Sure.
Guys, thank you so much for joining on the show. King of Southside himself is Frank Montro. Thank you, and we will see you next week.
Chicago Flipping with Andrew Holmes will return next Sunday at 12 noon. For information or questions about content of this show or to speak to Andrew, call 844-MONEY-55 or visit ChicagoCashflow.com to learn about upcoming seminars. That's 844-666-3955. And be sure to tune in next week.